All right. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. This is the Notary Governance meeting for the Filecoin Plus program taking place on May 17th. This is the first session at 8 a.m., 3 p.m. UTC. The high-level agenda that we're going to cover on this call is a little bit on introductions of participation. We do this every week. This will be a slight modification to make this as easy as possible for you notaries that are coming on this call. We're bringing back metrics. We had taken this off the schedule for the last two times due to time constraints. We're going to be checking in on that this week. We have a lot with the notary issues. So we had the onboarding call with you notaries last week. We had a lot of great feedback that came through in DM and the channels. We'll be flagging that to make sure that you're all aware of those issues with your verification on Ledger wallets. For the community issue, we have a presentation by the enterprise proposal that's taking place from Holon. Meg is leading that effort. So she's left us some slides to go over. I think I'll cover in her stead, and on the afternoon session, she'll speak to that. So if you wanted to hear in her words, we'll cover that in the afternoon. And then we'll save time for community discussions, and we'll talk more about how to make that an easier process for all those involved. So with that, hello, my name is Kevin. I lead the community efforts here on the Filecoin Plus program and join with the ever so wonderful Galen and Deep, who you see on the call as the co-hosts. Together, we'll be the ones that are responding to your Slack messages and the GitHub repositories. So if this is new, we'll be the team that's backing you up on this program. So one of the things that we're asking to make sure that this is just a little bit easier to track is trying to link those of you that are coming to the call as notaries to the participation you signed on. So in the past, we've been having you fill out a form like, hey, my name is Kevin, I was on the call today, and you check it in Airtable. As we start to look at processes to automate this script, we're gonna do some more testing. But one of the ways that can make this ensure that you get credit for coming today, in addition to the forms and just kind of double checking your work, is setting your name in your Zoom handle to the organization that you represent. Sometimes if we just see a name like, say, Kevin, we have no idea how to link it together. So just as a heads up, if you want to make sure that this goes a little bit easier, try setting your name to the organization that you represent. And in the future, what we're going to test out is having some bots that scrape this Zoom call, and they'll be taking whatever Zoom address you have on file and matching that with the email address in your application. So we know that there's going to be some growth and learning curves with this. So we're trying to kind of like just check all the boxes to make sure that you get credit for coming. But this is one of those really low lift, easy ways. As always, we ask that you do fill out this form until we get that script running. I'm just going to copy this and paste it here in the new tab as we go forward. But this form just lets us know you're on the call, you're on that, and then we'll go. Galen, thank you so much for putting that in chat. So even if you have changed your name, just as we get this SOP all figured out, might be a smart way to set that up. All right, so with that, I'll pause if there's any questions about setting your name or making sure that you're checking in on that form. Wonderful. All right, let's dive into metrics. So we have not taken a look at this for a few weeks. We've seen some really drastic changes that are coming as we start to work on this process a little bit more. So the first off is the average time to data count. We've got this down by 7 hours over the last 2 months, which is great. And we'll take this progress as we start to move forward. And what this is by the time that someone makes that request for data, this is a combination of having the automation for the less than 32. It's in combination with having that set up with the notaries responding out quickly. So thank you so much. The average time to first response is where we're starting to focus one of our priorities for improving the metrics on this program. So this is how long someone takes from when they submit their application to when they get a response from the notary. So the next slide, I'll talk about some of the tools that we're rolling out to make this easier for you, notaries, to see these applications come in and get those questions off to that applicant as fast as possible. And also taking a look at the data. It's amazing how much data is coming from the Filecoin Plus side of the house. So we'll take a look at where that data is really coming in from as we go forward. So this metric, you'll start to see this run in the notary channel, you notaries on the call. So when this posts, originally it was posting in the thread, and it would give a list of all of the clients that needed their applications to have a review. This got to be really messy in that notary private channel we have on Slack. So you'll notice one of the modifications that just got put in, I think it was yesterday, was that it will thread. So now it will say, hey, here's a thread. here's all the applications that are ready for your review. And then it will actually have your name. I'll be going through every couple of days and just saying, hey, friendly ping, have you seen that you have this request for client allocation come through? Is there anything you need? And the goal is that if somebody requests this application on Monday, we're not waiting until 6 full days later on Sunday to write back and say, hey, thanks for your application. What do we need? We're trying to drive that number down for when somebody requests the data and we say, hey, thanks for your request. Here's the questions I have about your project. Here's the additional information I need in order to give you the information. So this script will be running. It's going to post in that Fil Notary's channel. And then I'll also be tagging you like, hey, do you have any questions, anything we can do? And it's all part of that engagement process to make sure that we're connected. So I'll pause if anybody has questions about this new spot that's going to be running in our chat. Pretty straightforward. We'll come back to it.
I had a quick question. And maybe this is just a check for understanding. Right now, I think we have it set up to post that in the Fil Plus Notaries channel. Should it post in the requests channel, or should it post in the Notaries channel because it's in the thread and it's like all of the notaries available, or maybe both?
Maybe we could take that offline. There's 2 ways we could do this. I thought it was nice to have in the Notaries channel. We did have that issue with Fabri on like what he wanted to see go with that, but I'm totally agnostic. Maybe we could take a look at the pros and cons. Come back.
Okay.
Does anybody have any input on that? Are there applicants on the line that would like to see all the other applications in that application review, or is this better served to be in the Notaries? All right. If you have strong conviction, feel free to put it in chat and we'll go on. All right. The network is just exploding. And this is really clear to see if we take a look over the last couple of days and weeks, is you see just the amount of data that's continuing to come in on the Filecoin Plus side of the house. I think we're at the 72 petabytes, which is accounting for 86% of all network storage on the Filecoin network. And that active deal count is now at 3 million. So I'm just highlighting the fact that this Filecoin Plus program, it's a main driver of like our network space. And so making sure that we get this right is going to be critical for the success of this program. So with that, we're going to spend a little bit of our time focused on notary updates. And so the key categories that we're going to cover on this one is verifying the ledger. We took some time during the onboarding class last week at this time to kind of set that up, troubleshoot it. I'm going to follow up and answer any remaining questions that have come through. We're going to take a look at how we can start to really measure SLA participation. This was part of the application process this time around, and we'll talk about the goals of that. So making sure that the notaries that are in the program are engaged, they're coming to meetings, they're answering questions on Slack. How do we actually make sure that that's taking place? We'll give you some like rough drafts ideas on that. And then we're going to highlight Mandarin sessions. So if you came to the English session and you still had questions, good news, we have a member of the community who's volunteering their time. We'll talk about that. Then we'll check in on LDN V3. So with that, with the verification process, this is a new addition that we're adding. And what this does is essentially links the ledger to the application. So we know that we're not running with a program or a bot, that it's in hand from you notaries that are giving that stamp. So during this process in the onboarding class, we hit some issues where some of you just kind of hung as you got that dead issue. We've pegged that down and we've released that onboarding step-by-step in the tutorial for essentially 3 things. First off, in order to verify your ledger on that step, you have to have Fil in the ledger. So we'll be issuing that as we go through this week. We'll talk more about when that Fil is becoming. And we're transferring you a small amount, and that will cover those transaction fees as we go forward. The second is that you need to be signed in to GitHub when you click this verification. So I think we covered this in the Slack channel, but just as a refresher, when you click that verification, you need to be ensured that you're signed in GitHub, and your application must be fully updated. We'll show you that and what that looks like on the next slide. So if you were one of those folks that had problems with your verification and you had your login to GitHub completed and you had your GitHub application, it could be that you had no Fil in your wallet. And we'll be sending that fill out today, tomorrow, and Thursday. So once you receive that fill, you can then go back in and then verify your ledger address and then data cap to follow. When you are updating your GitHub, this is what it should look like. So when you have your application, your new, whatever most current ledger address should be at the very top. If it's in the thread, the bot will not pull from it. So this address has to be correct at the top. And you need to make sure that the formatting remains. So if you copied and pasted from a previous session and it deleted all of these bullets, that bot will no longer scrape it. So please make sure that your application's good to go. And once you've done that verification step, you'll see this tag pop up at the bottom of your notary application at the bottom. And will say, haha, you have successfully verified your ledger and you are good to go. And now we can be sending out that address. So I'll pause if anybody encountered any other issues outside of these steps or anybody had any questions that they wanted to ask about this process. Now would be a great time.
Kevin, Jesse here from IPFS Japan. Hello. Just a quick question. So, and I know Masaki already mentioned this, I think via DM with you. Just want to ask you, are we supposed to, because the address that we have at the top of our ledger, that was our address during round 2. And I think we read somewhere that if we still have some data cap on that address, for round 3, we need to supply a different one or a new address, which we did during the application. But yeah, somehow when we tried to verify the ledger, we encountered some errors. So can we still use the round 2 address?
So for right now, you can still be using the round 2 address to sign messages and send allocations. And we're going to work on, once we've gotten everybody switched over to round 3, we'll see who still has data cap remaining in round 2, and we'll clean all that up. For round 3, when you sign in to the registry app, in the top right corner where it shows your address, you can click on that and it'll list your first 5 ledger addresses. And so you can just click on that to drop down and switch to the second address. And if you give us that second address for round 3, it will remember whatever address you used to sign in. So then the next time, like the next day when you go back to the registry app, it should sign you back into that second address. And so you can just check each time that you're signed into the correct, address on your ledger. But ideally, if you were approved for round 2 election, you should give us a new address on your ledger, and you should do the verification process on your new address. And that should be the address in your new parent comment GitHub issue. Okay. And you may need, excuse me, you will need a little bit of fill to cover the gas fees to send this ledger verification message. And then the foundation is going to be sending out hopefully this week, once we've gotten all of these notary ledger verified messages, we will send one fill to everybody to cover message costs for for a while.
Okay, understood. We'll try that. Sounds good. Thank you, Gavin.
Okay. Yes, and if you have any issues like switching to the other address, copying that address, updating your application, whatever, or getting the ledger verification, once you have done those things, then just post and let us know, and Kevin will fix it because Kevin's the wizard.
Thank you. All right, gotcha. Thank you, guys.
Oh, hi, just a quick question. So is it mandatory to having a new address for the round 3?
Yes, we would like to have a new address for round 3. It will help us with our tracking and with all of the different multi-sigs and all the different tooling.
Okay, so I think I submit the old one on the previous, I think on the application page. So okay. I need to change it right now, or like, so where should I change it?
Yes, so change it on your application and on this Airtable form. I'll have you send us a new form response. Let me
Okay.
send the Airtable form.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yes. So this form, I'm going to send it just in a DM to you.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
And then looking in chat, Galen, we have Darnell who's asking from Secure Experts about his application. Darnell, if I believe correctly, you did not reapply to be a notary in this third round. So we could follow up with you in a DM offline, and that could be why you don't see that application label. The elections closed back in March, and then we're all finalized since then. Is that what you're tracking as well, Darnell? What we'll do is, I know that you and I had some DMs. I'll bring in Galen and Deep, and we could see. I know that you still have your existing data cap that will go up. These steps are applying for the new round in round 3 with the 1 petabyte that went out. So we'll follow up with you one-on-one to make sure you're squared away.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much.
All right, let's talk about SLA. So essentially in this recent round of elections, one of the lines that we took into account for scoring was how much time would you have to participate in the program for Filecoin Plus. And so the way it was worded on the application is like, how much do you estimate that you could involved in like making data cap allocations, commenting on FIPS, discussions, onboarding, coming to these meetings, coming to Slack. And so you all gave a number between like 1 hour, 4 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours. And then we used that to assign a score. And that score went into your final application for being selected. So one of the things we're looking at is how can we start to measure this? And how can we build this into a way that's fair and equitable? So everybody has visibility into like what's going on with the program. So the goal is not to be, the intent is not to be like a time tracker, like, hey, you need to clock in at 4 o'clock and then we see those TPS reports. It's more like, hey, you really went above and beyond. You helped out the network. Let's make sure that we're documenting this in some way. So we have development in process for a leaderboard, which will say like, hey, this notary approved this many applications in this fast of a time. This SLA will play a large part into that, how they're taking part. So I'm looking for feedback right now, and I'm going to propose a proposal, but this is that first step in the conversation, is we're experimenting and kicking around ideas for how to collect this in a low lift way. And one of the things that seemed to make the most logical sense was having some type of engagement survey that you would fill out. Like I would send you a DM the same way I've sent you those Pulse survey DMs, or like, are you coming to Phil Austin surveys, or what do you want to have covered in the onboarding talks? So those same exact surveys that you've been getting, it would come from just a posting in the notary channel. It would just say like, hey, list your name, list your organization, and here's just a mock-up of what it would look like here. And it would just say, hey, here's my organization. I did this, I did that. I spent 60 minutes doing data cap. I spent 4 hours reviewing those applications. I left a couple comments on FIPS. I came to the call that week and I was on Slack responding to everybody. And you would fill this out, and then this would populate a board that I could then see like how many hours. Obviously, the pros and cons of this is pro. It gives a very tactical way to see like where you're engaging, where you're not. It gives us a way to say like, hey, thank you for your contributions to this. Do you want to take on more projects or bigger scope of responsibility? Or it gives us a way to say like, hey, maybe this isn't your thing as far as like that is concerned, but maybe this other thing is. So how can we help plug you into that? The cons are the bookkeeping. You would have to do this survey. So I think the first item where I'm looking for feedback is it better to have this go out weekly or every 2 weeks? So maybe come to chat. I'll stop talking if you want to weigh your voice. And then also the feedbacks and discussions are looking for ways that you're keen to get more involved. These are also proposals that can be just aside from those applications. So the first topic, weekly or bi-weekly, and ideas on how to get more involved.
Maybe we can do bi-weekly at first, and then if we find that it's lacking on updates, then we can switch to weekly.
Right. I like that. Any other thoughts? Sweet. James, I appreciate the input coming off mute. What I'll do is I'll put this in the GitHub repository for a proposal. I'll propose this every 2 weeks. I'll include it along with this invitation for this registry. What'll be nice is it could take the place of having to mark like attendance on this form. When we sign in, you can just do it all in one shot. List out your time for the 2 weeks and we'll go forward. So Cabrina, James, thanks for the input. I'll put that in the proposal for every 2 weeks. One of the things we'll be talking about quite a bit later on the call is the Filecoin Plus Day, but I wanted to say thank you to those of you that have been doing those feedback surveys, because it's super helpful for letting me know what kind of content to give you during the onboarding or on these calls. And just kind of calling out one of the data sets that we had here was that one of the questions I asked before we did the onboarding call to each of you was that you knew how to set up a ledger. And this was the issue that most commonly came back. So we kind of put those guides together. So it's really, really helpful when you fill out those surveys like, hey, I'd like to have more information on this, or I'm lacking in that, because that'll really guide and steer the content that we're working on for you. So thank you for those of you that have filled those out. I'll probably have more to come as we go through the time. And we'll spend some more time on the Filecoin Plus Day to talk about some of those cool metrics that come out of the data analysis. Also, we also have a volunteer from the community speaking of that SLA participation. And that's Eric from Bytebase. I'm doing a quick scan to see if you're on the call right now. You are, so hello and thank you. Eric has very generously offered his time to host a onboarding notary session specific to their lessons learned. Very successful notary in the program, been around for a while. Eric, if I don't mean to put you on the spot too much, would you feel comfortable unmuting and saying a quick hello and a quick plug for this?
You mean you want me present right now?
No, not at all. I just wanted you to say hello and introduce what you were going to say.
Okay, guys. So I'm the previous notary here. So I would like to cooperate with Kevin. I would like to cooperate with Kevin, and later we will post our Chinese versions notary training course on GitHub with the notary channel. So we hope all the Mandarin speaking notary to join us and to have the notary onboarding training. Thank you. 我再用中文说一遍啊，就是我希望那个我跟 Kevin 一起来合作，我们再做一场那个中文的公证人的 onboarding 的这么一个培训，因为我们作为过去1年的老公证人嘛，我们也知道有很多在签批的时候，包括使用 Ledger 啊，踩过的各种坑，遇到的各种故障。那么我也希望把这些要点分享给大家啊，以便大家顺利的完成公证人的这个 onboarding， 然后更加顺利的为社区去服务，好吧？谢谢大家。Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Eric, bravo. And I just wanted to call out not only just a big, massive props to you, Eric. Thank you for volunteering. Thank you for like seeing this need and then stepping in to fill it. I think that's exactly what we're looking for when we ask for like ideas to get involved for like side projects or way to strengthen the community. So Eric, amazing thank yous. I think everyone's looking forward to this. Eric, I'll let you post the daytime and the Zoom link for when you want to host this in the Notary channel. And then that way it can be completely led, and let me know how I can help you as you go forward.
Okay, clear.
I'll turn this over to Galen for an update on the LDN v3.
Yes, hello everybody. We have not heard any strong concerns or questions about the proposal here. We're moving forward with this implementation. You can read more about it. We've talked about it a few times. We're going to restructure to go from each LDN client application getting its own multi-sig so that one multi-sig works with one client. We're going to restructure that so that when an LDN application comes in, there's one big parent multi-sig that all of the notary signers are on, and that one big parent multi-sig works with all of the approved LDN clients. So we're just working on figuring out all the tooling, making sure that the bot, issues are going to work. I'm sure there'll be some bugs and glitches for us to work through, but we're trying to work through all the edge case scenarios now with those development teams and get our dashboard trackers working. So stay tuned on kind of what that rollover plan is going to look like. I think it's still going to be probably 2 weeks out before we roll everybody. That will also mean that we're going to be deprecating the existing sort of multi-sig addresses. So those like existing F0 notary addresses that we're working with one particular client, those will get deprecated once everybody's connected to the new V3 LDN. So I think it's going to be exciting. I think that gives us some more tooling opportunities and some subscription models. And I think that it's just going to make some of our tracking processes a little bit easier to manage. So thank you guys. If there are questions or ideas or concerns that come up, this governance issue is still open. You can post them there while we continue working through this implementation. And we won't, cut anybody off until we've got this new V3 multi-sig going. So don't need to worry about that. So there shouldn't be any downtime for the existing multi-sigs. All of those will still have their 23 some odd signers until we've fully connected everybody to the new one. So should be good there. Thanks.
Thanks, Galen. Short pause if there's any other questions. I saw that we had one come through. Any other finals? All right, let's move on to the open issues. So the two parts we're going to cover on this is one, Filecoin Plus Day, which is rapidly coming up, I think less than 3 weeks from now. And then a high-level overview of the enterprise proposal that's being worked on by some of you notaries, being led by Megan Holon. So let's start out with Filecoin Plus Day. So essentially the registration link is now live. We'll be posting it again in the Fil Plus channel and the notaries channel again and again, and talking about this at a very high level. Essentially what this session is going to be, it's going to be live in Austin, Texas, but we're trying to make the emphasis for those of you that are remote, realizing that it's still really tricky to travel in the US world, essentially in 2022. So that means that all of the content, all of the slides, all the presentations, we'll make sure that we're mic'd, we'll make sure that the video is on, and it's really going to be set up for those of you that are watching as well that are able to attend live. So if you'd like to attend, whether live or remote, we have the link. There's a registration Luma. We'll place that here in chat in just a moment. And when that session kicks off, it's going to start at 8:30 Central Time. That's Texas time zone, which comes out to 13:30 UTC. So I think those of you in China, it's around 3 o'clock for your time frame. And it will be running till the evening. The sessions, we've just been finalizing them, and we're in progress right now to get the content laid out and really have it spelled out. But essentially at a high level, we're going to start out with an introduction to what the Filecoin Plus program is. This is meant to be that overview for somebody who may be new to the program and looking to really kind of onboard themselves into what we're doing, what we're trying to do, and where we are. And that'll lead into the State of the Union. What challenging aspects do we have right now? What do we need to overcome? And where have we been over the last year since we last met together? We're going to have enterprise working groups present. So this is some of the work that Meg and the notaries are doing to strengthen that DAO participation. There's going to be sessions on the Filecoin storage providers, their work and how the process comes out. We have a session led about the crypto economics and how that process is taking place. We have lessons learned. So we'll have notaries that have been in the program before talk about what they wish that they knew sooner, as well as what advice they have going forward getting started. So this could be applying for those of you that are newly elected notaries in the 3rd round, or those of you that may be wishing to apply in the 4th round to get involved. And then also social impact and like the future state of storage. So how are we looking at this from a impact of climate, on betterment of data? So we'll spend a lot of time digging into those. And we'll probably add some sessions as we go forward on top of that. Afterwards, there will be a storage provider sync. And then the very next day is the Phil Austin event. So all those links have been added to chat. If you're curious to sign up, please, love to have you. And if you have more feedback on sessions or content, I know we've asked for this in the past. I know that as the time getting closer, we're going to finalize this. But if there was a session that you'd like to see included, or a talk or an idea, and you don't see it on this list, that'd be a great, send me a DM and say, hey, Kevin, I think it would be wonderful if, and then I'll see what I can do to build in speaker or content. Those of you that I pinged about speaking, thank you. I'll be reaching out to a few more of you for just interviews, backgrounds, and see what we can produce on the back end as this gets closer. So I'll pause and see if anybody has questions about signing up, some of the content, or what to expect at Fil Plus, which is taking place on June 7th. All right. If you have anything, feel free to put it in chat and we'll go through. This is going to be the last call to arms if you haven't filled out the Airtable link for participation. Galen, if I could ask your help one more time for those that are late joiners. This will be some of the last few times that we're doing this. Ideally, we switch to an automated way as we go forward. But this will make sure that you and your organization get credit for coming today. And we'll put that on your SLA for your metrics. So one last share if you came in late and you haven't filled out the meeting attendance form for today. All right, Galen, do you want to tag team this with me? Deep, do you want to tag team? Do you want me to just walk through this the same way that I'm talking with Meg? Deep, any input on how much?
Yeah, happy to support or run through whatever you're comfortable with. If you wanna just kick it off, Kira, I can add more detail wherever.
Maybe we do that. That way everybody can hear some wonderful voices just besides my own, and we'll just kind of all three go through the slides. And the reason for this, everybody, is these next slides were put together by a member of the community, Meg from Holon. And right now it's the middle of the night for them in Australia. So we'll speak to this. And Meg, if you're watching this, I hope we do you justice. And then she'll be presenting her own on that afternoon scene. So essentially at a high level, the notary governance discussion is looking at how can members of the community shape this? Like what's going on with Fil Plus? What kind of pulse check, what kind of feedback are they hearing? What are they collecting amongst themselves? And what kind of proposal can they put out to the community, you, to make it better? So they've broken this into two sections. And the section on the left is what they're proposing. And the section on the right is how they would implement it. So at a very high level, what they're proposing is that the scope is limited. So right now we need useful data, but it's always not public data. So how can we look at that? The proof of concepts, like how are we looking at pathways for decision-making and making that setup a little bit easier for folks to follow? And then how are we looking at the incentivization layers for those between storage providers, between notaries, between applicants? Are they all mutually aligned and doing what they need to do together? And then actually looking at like what works well. So what is the Filecoin Plus program trying to achieve with bringing quality high-level data on? And then their goal is to have proposals that they can hit from the community standpoint. So what kind of goals, targets, and incentives can they propose across Protocol Labs, Filecoin Foundation, you as notaries and applicants and storage providers? And then how can they check in on that process to make sure that it gets done? And then have responsibility spread across the board so it's not just a top-down, but like a true DAO functioning. Deep, Galen, I'll pass it over to you for any additional like high-level thoughts you wanted to add to this.
I think we've covered, overall structure for the enterprise a little bit before, so I don't want to spend too much time on this. The only thing I wanted to add is if you check out the discussion section in the Notary Governance repo, we now have a dedicated label for conversations that are happening with regards to this particular topic, let's say. So highly recommend if you have ideas or things you want to flag, check it out. So Galen, that's the link for the discussions. I'm also pasting in the one for the specific category. So if there's anything you want to bring up or participate in, it's going to go in there. I chatted with Meg, and there's a couple of like sub work streams that are emerging in the working group. And so each of those will slowly have its own discussion topic as well, so that you can keep track of what's going on async. Even if you're not participating in the active and ongoing conversations, you should be able to know what's happening. And so a good example of that is the KYC mechanisms for enterprise clients that I kicked off, where we're tracking some of the thinking and talking around getting services for doing KYC of enterprise clients.
All right, so similar to the pulse check that some of you guys have filled out, Meg solicited this one across some of the notaries, and here were some of the themes that came back. I won't read these all because like death by PowerPoint, right? But if you're taking a look, it was identifying what's the scope for the storage providers to be involved in this. How can we change the user experience and some of the tooling to make it more easy for folks that are newer to the community to get involved? And then doing things in Web3 by Web3. So like right now, a lot of the processes and systems that we use still rely on this like Web2 framework. And if we're really going to lean into that, how do we lean into it more from some of those tools available? Notaries, as you onboard into the program, sometimes it's a little bit unclear of like, what does good look like? What does great look like? What does bad look like? So as we talk about SLAs, as we talk about these things, how can we strengthen that onboarding process to be more clear and defined without making it totally rigid and like just the same thing a bot could do? And then how do we make sure that those notaries and storage providers are collaborating in a way that's not crossing the lines? So essentially, what is self-dealing? How does it look like? How do we detect for it? What are the consequences that come from it? So some of these on the list might be issues that you've come across in your work as a notary. They could be new to you as you start to get ramped up as a notary. But this is essentially what that working group is looking to like tackle and identify as like key projects that we can start looking at in the coming year. I'll pass it off again to Galen and Deep for any kind of additional thoughts on that.
Nothing to add, Gary. Crushed it. I think we should keep going.
So this is proposal, and this is where they start to put some meat and potatoes onto the vines here. So essentially what they've been talking about is like, how does that data cap work out? They're starting to look at what does that due diligence communication line look at? And then how do we take that human-centered approach to this and then make sure that there's one person that can like read and review multiple applications, either with the help of that filter bot, new bots, or tooling that can make this. And essentially the goal is that you as notaries don't have to spend so much time in this back and forth between the applicants to get more requests to verify that it's a legitimate business case. How can we build that in to make it? And then what are the boundaries? I think this comes up again and again and again, is how do we know the difference between good work and bad work and then fraudulent work? And so really defining that and then setting out service level agreements for how much will be reviewed and what time will that be done. So this is kind of the big takeaway that the group is looking at and next steps that they'll present during Filecoin Plus Day. This is the timeline that they're hoping to move forward. These dates are obviously going to shift as like schedules and timelines come up, but essentially they're looking for like the approval of the goals and objectives, if not at the Filecoin Plus Day, immediate after it. Then what they're looking to do is like not just have working groups for data input, but anybody that wants to get involved within the community of actually working on the implementation for these projects. Then they're hoping to have a minimum viable product and MVP kickoff in late July, which is less than 2 months away. And then from that MVP, have some sort of system to make this easier for you. So all of those issues, those hardships that they addressed, probably picking out 1, 2, or 3, and then getting your input, and then rolling out that MVP to you as clients by sometime in late August, and then pushing that launch out by September. So this is a pretty detailed action plan. It's very like shoot for the moon. I think that's why we have rockets in here. And I think the big highlight is this is being fully led, fully driven by the notaries on this enterprise proposal. This is not owned and operated by the foundation or Protocol Labs, which is really, really neat to see how like you as the community are taking this and building off it. So Deep, Galen, again, I'll pass it off if you want to kind of add more engineering context to this.
Yeah, I think the only thing that I would add to this is, of course, this is work in progress. There's a lot of things that will likely change as we continue to learn about what is required to deliver this at the level that we want. I think there's a couple of different shapes of how this also could like turn into over time, depending on who participates, what we're able to do in terms of software, like flexibility we build into the system, and then how like we want to handle certain clients and types of clients that are coming in within like this like larger like enterprise definition. But it is, clearly we've got several months of work ahead of us, which then means for any of you listening to this, whether you're here live or watching the recording, it's definitely not too late to get involved and help shape how we're thinking about this. So quick plug once again, if you're interested in helping solve the general problem of getting data cap to enterprise use cases, so that is where the data may or may not be encrypted, or the client themselves may or may not be able to share certain information without an NDA. And so typically problems around KYC, around ensuring that like data cap is being used appropriately, the fact that we're actually finding ways in which enterprises can take bets on Filecoin. So that's SLAs and licenses and liabilities. This is the place to have those conversations and ensure that we're leveling up and supporting that type of use case or that set of use cases via Filecoin Plus and making the Filecoin network more productive. Interpreting this as like yet another path to data cap, at least in its current its current iteration, is probably reasonable. Like if you think about getting it directly from a notary or getting it to an LDN, this might be similar to an LDN process, but with some tweaks up front, with some slight changes to the way in which like notaries actually access those applications and the data that comes with them, and then the client's path itself might look a little bit more tuned for the average large scale business as opposed to the average small scale individual, which is sort of the shift that we need to make in the perspective, as well as like the design of what appeals to that type of particular user, whether that's a CTO or a CIO or like a data thinker or data engineer in a company. But that is to say, hopefully, that makes sense. These are interesting prompts for discussion and learning. Please come participate in the conversation either in GitHub discussions or catch Meg on Slack and make sure you get pulled into the right working group, or just reach out to one of us and we'll pull you in. But we're excited to sort of see where this goes.
Thanks, Steve. So as we listed here, we shared the slide deck out. It's in the Slack channel for Fil Plus if you want to grab this link. We're going to be posting in this discussion channel in the Notary Governance 527. If you have any feedback or issues, please feel free to make a comment on that. And again, Meg will be at Filecoin Plus Day live, and she'll be giving the presentation on this one. So we'll get a lot more information on call to arms, updates, next steps. So thank you. Read all about it. Coming soon. So we are at 8:47 California time, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 requests from the applications for LDN to present their applications. So obviously we have a system that isn't scaling as we go forward. So in the Notary Governance repo before each one of these calls, I ask if there's anything that you'd like to present or bring forward to the community. And this is where you guys have been saying, yes, I'd like to present my application. Thank you. Perfect. You're doing great. I think what we're seeing is that could be filling the entire time for this. So if we gave, 5 minutes to everybody, that is very much the 45 minutes that we just spent on all the higher level issues, and then we won't get it. So what I'm going to propose is I'm going to share the links for all these applications. And I think that these applicants would very much like their proposals on your radar notaries. So when your data cap comes in, and applicants, I think going forward in the future, what I'll ask is that if you pre-record your 5-minute session, I will compile those and put them into almost like a demo cut that can then be shared. So that way, when you come to these sessions in the future, rather than having to give a live presentation for 5 minutes about your application, that's what the recording can do. So I can hang that recording in the Notary channel, I can hang that recording in the Plus channel, I can hang that recording in the application review. Anybody can watch, review, get the information on your repo and your application. And then when we come to this Notary Governance call, you'll have plenty of time for Q&A. So if a notary is like, hey, I like your proposal, but I'm curious what you're doing with the data, versus having to do that all live. So since we don't have time for everybody to present, I think what I'm going to do is share these links for these. All of the slide decks are in the repo. These people have taken the time, and ask for feedback from the community on if that notion that I just put out with having those recordings would work for you going forward. All right, quiet crowd on the mics, but I see one comment in there. So I'll put this in the issue. I'll make a quick proposal. That way it's just more clear, more we have community. So before we let the presenters go, since they only have 5 minutes, I think we're only going to have time for one. Before we do any of the application presentations, I'm going to turn the floor over to any of the notaries on the call or any first time or anybody not on this list. If there was something on today's call that you'd like to flag for clarification or bring up before we get to, maybe I think we'll have time for just one of these application reviews. Any other things that anybody would like to address or discuss?
Yeah, hi, Kevin. This is Kabrina. I just have one question regarding the community discussion, which is the page you just showed right here. So, so should each notary go through each like video here, or this is assigned by Notion, or what?
That's a great question, Kabrina. So the way that the system's working right now is that these individuals have signed up and they said, I'd like to flag an item for the community. Typically in the past, this could be somebody like proposing a FIP or wanted to flag something for everybody else. Recently, I'd say like in the last 3 governance calls, we've seen a surge in LDN applicants that would like to discuss their LDN application in hopes of making sure that they're addressing common questions before the notaries have come up to it. So to answer your question, no, there is no action you need to take to watch the videos or review these. These are just flags by members of the applicant pool that wish to put these on your radar ahead of time. And just as Galen put in Slack, ideally, we're going to ask that these applicants film a video of themselves ahead of time. That way, as you, the notary, if you so wish, if you're curious about an application, you can then go watch one of them speak to it. There's no requirement to do this on your part, and there's no requirement on the applicants to do this. I think these are folks that are just really excited about getting their data onto the network, and they're trying to take all steps possible to ensure that their applications are seen and addressed quickly and effectively. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thanks.
All right, well, making good. NFT scan, since you signed up first on the list, I'm going to turn the floor over to you. You would have 5 minutes to present your application. And at the end of the 5 minutes, I'm going to say that everybody else on this list, I will send you the details on how to record, and I'll post your video or any kind of sharing that you want to have to get that in front. So with that, NFT, I'll stop sharing and turn the floor over to you to present for 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you so much, Kevin, for introducing me. Hi, everyone. I'm Danny, the marketing director of NFT Scan. And here, as you can see, NFT Scan is a professional NFT exposure and data open platform. Our vision is to become one of the most influential infrastructure in the blockchain field and providing developers secure and stable and users with a simple, efficient retrieval service. For now, we have integrated 4 chains. Here you can see Ethereum, BNB chain, Moonbeam, and Polygon. You can use and the aim of us is to index all the EVM chain of the next half year, like Sonona, ZK-Sync, Tezos, and Moon River, you can use NFT scan exposure to query NFT connections information. And just like this NFT project, you can just click, and here you can get this. You can from this page see the NFT project, NFTs. It will show it here, and also the activity the NFT project goes. Here you can see the transfer, the sale, and the timestamp. Also, it shows you the top holders of this NFT project. You can see this address have 1,754 doodles, and that's very crazy. Also, you can check the analytics of this project. Here is the description, and you can adjust from here to see which the traded description and also the trending, the value of this NFT. Also, you can, sorry. You can also check the holders by the single wallet address like this. It will show you the activity of the holder and the connected NFT, and also the minted NFT and the analytics. This is the NFT data on Ethereum, and also you can check the NFT data on BNB chain and as well as Moonbeam, Polygon. And the second product of ours is that this, our open API. For now, you can use our open API platform to developers have 10,000 free calls per day, and at the same time, you can have a professional version of paid service. And we can also meet large-scale data requests. In addition, NFTs can also support customers' API interface to meet developers' needs for NFT data in various business. And we also have the API docs here. You can check. Here are many different types of API, maybe which one you need. And the most important thing is that for now, we had retrieved more than 900 CB data in our serve. And the Ethereum, BNB chain, Polygon, Moonbeam, and the 5 copies will be stored in Filecoin. And there are NFT metadata just from Ethereum, BNB chain, Polygon, and Moonbeam, and all the transaction information and the data from NFT scan description here. And for our open API platform, we have 16 plus projects. As a professional NFT exposure and the data open platform, for now we have like 718 plus developers registered account, and more Web3 developers are using NFT scans data service. And our vision is to become one of the most influential blockchain infrastructure, providing developers with secure and stable service. Last but not least, the very important thing is that if you want to know more information about NFT scan, you can check our Twitter here, the Discord and the Twitter. You can also contact with us. Here is the Telegram, and also you can send us email. And thank you so much. That's some basic information of NFT scan. Thank you, guys.
Very nice. Thank you so much for sharing your project. Sounds interesting. I'll turn it over if anybody on the line has any questions.
There's some questions in the chat, Kira, if we want to ask those.
Yeah,
Yeah, it looks like.
Do you have any parts of that project open source? Can you give me your information about what do you mean the open source? You mean the code? Yes, we have GitHub, and for now we do not open source code, but we have GitHub for the discussing for developers.
We have time for one more question. It comes from Cabrina, and she asked, what's the normal retrieval frequency of those NFTs?
It depends. If your project needs the large calls per second, you can ask for us, and we can adjust for you for your project if you need.
Great. Well, thank you, NFT Scan, for the presentation. Those of you that requested time to present your projects, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write back to that repository repo. I will give you the link, and if you just send me a recording, I will make sure to blast that on your behalf. And so that way, rather than having to present live, we could hang those recordings in almost like a fashion. That way your applications get done. We are right at that 1 hour mark, so I'll stop the recording in just a minute. Thank you all for your time. If there's anything else that we didn't cover on this conversation that you'd like to see discussed, feel free to post it in the Filecoin Slack, and feel free to post it in the notaries if it's private. And if you'd like to see any content that's added to this as part of the weekly sessions to cover, please comment in the repository. With that, thank you so much, everybody. I'll hang on the line if anybody has any additional questions. Otherwise, have a great day.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Kevin. Have a good one.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to the May 17th. My goodness, time flies. Second daily edition of our Notary Governance meeting together. If you're watching on YouTube, this is the second clip. Those of you live, thank you for coming. So we have a full agenda. Let's not waste any moments as we go through. Today, what we're going to talk about is checks and how we're doing the participation and check-in for this meeting. I've gotten some offline feedback and some ideas on how we can make this better. So we'll be floating that in this call for your suggestions, and then I'll make a proposal on ways that we can improve that going forward. We're bringing metrics back. That's right. And so we'll be talking about some of the numbers in the program, where we stand, where we're going, where we've been. And then we have a lot of notary issues. These are stemming from the onboarding classes that we did last week, following up on some offline questions that came through and making sure that we're helping and giving you the dates that come through. And then we have a presentation after the open issue from Meg. Thank you for being on the line today. We presented on your behalf in the morning, so very much looking forward to hearing directly from the source on all the work you're doing. And then if there's time left after the open community calls from members of the notary team, we'll leave it open for anybody that signed up in the repository to present their LDN applications. And that'll take us right through the hour. So with that, just a friendly hello. My name is Kevin. Deep, Galen, and I are your friendly stewards to make sure that this program has everything you need. Feel free to reach out to us in DM or in the channels that we take part in. This is your first time, please say hello on chat. Be sure to add you, give you a like, comment, make sure you're in the right channels, or just genuinely reach out however you need it. Thanks for coming. Happy to have you. Okay, one of the things we're trying to do, and this is for everyone on the call, is we're going to start tying the attendance without having it be a manual process. So we're working this out. We're trying a couple different ways. We're trying to scrape the back end of Zoom and take the address that you log in with your participation, then link that back to your application. One thing that's making this really hard is that we all have different emails. So if you log in to this Zoom and your line says, like, for example, iPhone, we don't know who you are. That's okay if you want to remain anonymous. But for those of you notaries that have this as part of your SLA, thank you for being here. Want to make sure we have you counted. So a really quick and easy way to make sure that you're representing your organization is just to right click, change your name and say like, hey, I represent this org. So that way, if we do come back and we're manually pulling that data, it's really easy for us to say who was on that call. And thanks for doing that. The second thing is we're still doing this check-in process. So if you're a notary on the call and you want this to count towards your SLA, man, Galen, you were just sharp as a butcher's knife, my man. Galen put the link right there in chat for us. If you click that link, it's the same as always. And I apologize for this little bit of bureaucracy. We're working to get this even more streamlined. But if you're a notary on the call, if you're a client on the call, if you're a storage provider, and you just want to log that and make sure that you're part of that community, that link in Airtable is the way to do it. So thank you for taking that step. If you're coming to both calls, hey, thumbs up, and we'll make sure that we're giving you 2 hours on that time for your SLA. All right. With that, I'll pause if anybody has any flags with checking in, with saying hello, or any questions about SLA. All right. Let's take a look at metrics because we haven't done this for the last 2 calls. So our time to data cap is actually 7 hours faster. So this is great news. This is trending in the right direction. We've taken it from 1 day and 16 hours to 1 day and 9 hours. And we're still working on this metric as we drive forward. The second metric that we're really focusing on, and we're making an effort, and we'll talk about some of the ways we're doing it on this call, is that average time to first response. So when an application comes in and it gets received, what's the amount of time that it takes a notary or a member of the community to say, hey, I've received your application. I have these specific questions for you. Can you please get back to me with that information? So right now we stand around 6 days and change. So kind of one of the goals is how fast can we move that needle down so that we're getting it within 5 days, 4 days, looking at a 3-day goal for the turnaround. We'll talk about some ways that we're trying to make this easier for you notaries so it's not as bureaucratic as you go forward. Then the amount to data cap on the clients, we're still about average. We don't really have any systemic changes to the network, so nothing drastic to flag as far as that size as we go forward. Now, to make that network comparison, it's amazing what the Filecoin Plus program is doing. This is one of those like camp counselor moments where we all stand up and say, wow, look at everything we've been doing. But if you take a look at these charts here, essentially like Filecoin Plus is accounting for like 86% of the daily active deals and 87% of the storage that we're bringing on. Huge amounts of data, huge amounts of projects that's going on. So we realize that this is moving quick, just kind of taking a moment to recognize that and say thanks. It's going great. Now, with the notary updates that are coming forward, sure, I skipped a slide. My apologies. So before I go on to the notary updates, for you notaries, you might start to see this bot posting in our Fil Plus Notaries channel, the private channel for all of you notaries. The intention of this bot is to share any open applications and the notaries that it's assigned to. The goal of this is that if you have Slack on your phone and something comes in, you could just do a quick scan and check. You'll also notice that I might be sending you a DM like, hey, friendly check-in, are you aware of this application? Do you have any questions? Is there anything you need? And what I'm trying to do is make sure that this is on your radar quickly as possible, just to kind of tie that back to our average time to first response. So rather than taking 6 days to write back, this ping is supposed to be like, hey, a day, 2 days, 3 days. That's kind of our goal as we drive forward. And you can write back like, hey, thanks for the application. I'd like to see these more information as you go forward. So you'll see this bot. And Galen had a great question in the morning session, or I'll float this for any kind of topics, is rather than posting this in the notary channel, move this over to the Fil application. So the Fil Plus applications channel. So we might kind of solicit any input as we go forward on the next poll that we take. So if you have strong convictions or thoughts, feel free to put it into chat like, hey, I like the notary channel. Hey, I have no strong conviction, or hey, maybe both. So no wrong answers, put it in there and we'll get it for you. I'll kind of take a moment. If anybody would like to weigh in on, is this spot intrusive? What do they want to see, or any kind of channel? Danny, yeah.
Hey, I hope you can hear me. I had to switch to my phone for some reason, but okay, good. I would love, I kind of like it in the notary channel, but not a strong opinion, but I would love to get some slightly more data on these on these little messages. Something in particular, like how many days it's been, is good, because then like we can sort of prioritize the ones that are taking a while. That's my only suggestion.
That's good feedback. That's really good feedback. We'll take that back with the team, see what's possible. Can I ask you one more just community flag? I don't know if this is possible, so float this as just like good idea, Ferry. Right now, you see the @ just making sure that this @ isn't overwhelming as you get tagged. I know that Slack is a great tool, but sometimes that tool can become overwhelming when you have so many messages. So if you start to feel like this is becoming like spamming and killing the Slack or killing the channel for you, let me know and we'll see what we can do. Or vice versa, if you want more @, more information, more DMs, we could take that feedback as well.
I don't think it actually asks. Like, I'm just looking at that, and Danny OB is my GitHub repo name, but it's not my Slack moniker. So if that was the intention, that it isn't doing that so far, but I'm not sure I would want it to.
It's a good flag. I'll make a proposal and I'll just post it in the GitHub. I completely agree. I know that my worry is that we bombard you with too much information, then you just tune out. So tune out is definitely a worry. Please keep it coming. Deep, I see your hand. As always, just step in.
Yeah, I was just going to say this, I think, is a great opportunity for us to also like track through GitHub. So like if you've got feedback for this, I'd love to just have it be in GitHub. I think the current, actually, I think Galen, you own the repo for Filterbot, so maybe this is the place where we can start opening up issues. Yeah, because Galen, the link that I put in and the link that you put in are actually forks of the repo that you had. And so I don't actually think we can create issues on the fork. So we'd have to create issues on the main repo, which is still under your domain. And then what you and I can do is move that under Filecoin project. And so the issues will move with it. But for starters, we probably should get the Kiko team to merge back into the parent and then move the repo over. So for the time being, issues should be created in the parent repo, which is your repo. So Danny, if you don't mind, can I request you to open up an issue in the link that I just sent, which is under Galen's GitHub org, that just says, can we track like days that these things have been open? Thank you. And then you had a separate thing, which is, can I get my issue raising on that you typed in? Is that related, unrelated, or something else? That's to Danny. I see something in the chat where he said, ooh, I can get my issue raising on.
Oh, no, that was just me being
Englishing. Okay, that sounds good.
That's right. I enjoy raising bugs, especially
awesome
stability bugs.
So, yeah, that'd be great. So then the link under the latest link under Galen would be where you create an issue, and then I'll work with Galen to move the repo around to the right place because I now have rights to do that. Sweet.
Okay, Ray, back to you.
Wonderful. I was just typing a response. Vegetable, you had asked a question if you could have time to present your application. It may not work out, so just wanted to kind of give you early notice. If you were staying on this call, we're probably not going to have time to slot you in front because we have some other presenters that we're probably not going to get to as well. And we have a slide to talk about some of the time management later. So Vegetable, to be respectful to your schedule, it's probably a no, just making you ahead of that. All right, notary updates. This is for you notaries that are on the call. First off, thank you for coming last Tuesday. Wildly successful questions, issues, and troubleshooting as we work to get everybody set up. So I'm going to answer some of the most common FAQs that came out of that call and some of the DMs, and just kind of keep you aware of what next steps are with your onboarding and setup so you can start allocating that data. So the first one, it's verifying the ledger device. So this is a brand new process. And this is new after this third round of elections. So if you see the screenshots here to verify, you sign into the registry app. Once you're in, you connect your ledger and hit verify client. And then you're prompted on your ledger device to say like, hey, this is the verification message. You say yes. And then it's essentially connecting your ledger with the account on file. We had some complications come up with this, so to address those of you that helped troubleshoot this, thank you. Here are the 3 things that will block you in this step. Number 1, you have to have a small amount of fill for the transaction fee. So if your ledger and wallet have no fill in it, you'll be blocked from making that transaction. Ears on. We are going to be transferring every new notary a small amount. I think it's up to 1 fill. Correct me if that amount's changed, Galen. But that's going to be coming to your ledger account either today, tomorrow, or Thursday. The reason for the delay, it's been like a big legal hurdle to make sure that we have the right names and accounting. Now that that's all squared away, thumbs up, good to go. So as soon as you get that fill, you'll see it notified in your repo, and I'll show you a slide of what that looks like. Please log back in and do this step. You must verify your ledger device in order to receive your data cap and get going. One of the other questions I've got is like, hey, I can't get this step to work. Am I just not going to be able to use my ledger, or I want to use some digital option? And the reality for that is yes, you have to use your ledger. I have a detailed ledger setup guide in the onboarding repo. Notaries, that file is then pinned into the Slack. I'll double check that to go through. But that Filecoin setup, if you have any questions with this, again, we have some other sessions coming up in office hours, but that ledger does need to be set up for this step to work. Once you've done that ledger, you also need to have the things set up in your GitHub repo, which means you have to be signed in to GitHub when you register, and your GitHub application must be formatted like this. Formality, I'm sorry, what this is from is the bot that's scraping all this information to pull it in. So if there's any kind of changes to the formatting, the bot goes crazy and it doesn't work. So essentially this formatting has to be in line, and whatever final address you want has to be updated in this core information session. So if you've put it like in a chat message or as a comment lower on the chain, please make sure that you've logged back in and updated your core information to go forward. And that will scrape and pull forward. And once it does, you'll get this message inside of your application repo at the bottom. It will say, hey, thank you, your notary has been verified, you're good to go. And then all you're doing is standing by and waiting for the data cap as we start distributing it. So I'm going to pause here because this was kind of an issue. I see some chat going. If there's any questions that people want to flag or any lessons learned from this.
I think Charles and I were noting that, like, as long-time notaries, we actually both ran out of Filecoin this week. So I guess this deposit will be timely.
Nice. Thanks for the patience. Thanks for the help. Thank you, Galen. Galen's the one who's been spearheading this, so appreciate that. Any other questions? Feel free to put them in the chat. And then this guide is again in the notary onboarding education file. Next thing, this is kind of floating. I'm going to make a proposal and talk about this, but this is like a good chance to kind of flag it for community and then shape the proposal to come. So we're trying to look at how we can effectively measure SLA. So if you remember on your applications, we all list out, how much time per week you'll be investing in the program, whether that's responding to applicants, whether that's contributing to the community, partaking in anything that may make it better. And then you would list a set amount of hours that you would spend. The intent on this tracking is not to be like, hey, you need to double stamp your TPS reports, but more like, hey, thank you so much for these people that are effectively leading the charge on this Filecoin Plus program. And it will effectively play in to this leaderboard that's been in development, where we can say like, hey, these top notaries, almost like in a MySpace format, are the top ones that are really driving this, and we can give you the recognition and accolades and make sure that we're supporting you in the best ways. So to fund that data on that leaderboard, in order to participate that, we're trying to play around with ways that we can measure your participation in it. And so one of the ideas that we're getting the feedback on is having a very low lift form like the one you see here, And it's essentially a form like you may have seen come from me, just measuring your participation, and you would self-report. So I would send this to you and we'll talk about the time intervals, weekly or bi-weekly. You'd fill it out and you say, yeah, I've done the survey. Yeah, I came to the meeting. Yeah, I spent about an hour doing data cap applications, 4 hours reviewing, and I came to the notary governance calls. And hey, by the way, I'm leading this huge effort that's taken 12 hours this week. So whatever it may be, and you would fill this out, this populates into a spreadsheet and we can say like, okay, hey, this person put 7 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours. And again, it's not meant to be like, oh my gosh, show me every minute that you spent. These are like very broad estimations, but it's meant to be in a way that you can say like, yes, when you start looking at the time that I'm spending in this program, these are where I'm spending that time. And thank you, I'd like to be noted for that participation. So I see the chat's blowing up. I'm going to open it up and see if like there's any kind of specifics or questions or any kind of input on this.
No, there's nothing useful in the chat. It's just chit chatter about pizza and Filecoin Plus. I got you. I got you, K-Ray. It's we can. You just continue sallying forth.
Oh, I do like to sally forth, as you well know. Well, I guess maybe the question that I would ask everybody is, bureaucratically speaking, I don't want to be that guy. If you got this feedback survey every week, would it be maddening? Or would you prefer to get it like every 2 weeks? So this would be like how you sign in with the governance call. If there was other ways to get involved, would you like me to specifically spell that out? Like, hey, we're looking for people to take on these small projects or participate in like what Meg is leading. Or would you like to be self-led? So please unmute, give feedback, and I'll bake it into the proposal that I post.
At this point, K-Ray, there is some there's some chatter about every 2 weeks. A couple people are saying 2 weeks sounds better.
I'll talk to your second point, K-Ray. I think you know there's more than just signing a data cap, right? So there's so many other things that could be done in the community, and I think and they're a little more fulfilling as well, right? So I think it would be great if we can see other people join some things. I know I'm going to have some requests coming through soon, and I don't know that the other notaries realize this, but if you want to suggest something that's an improvement, you can do it here in this forum. You should do it.
Very well said. Very well said. Thank you for that. And then what I'm seeing in chat is 2 weeks. So I would also second that. Then what I'm going to do is I'll make a proposal similar to the one that I made and we'll talk about. If you like it, just a quick thumbs up. And if you think that it's the silliest thing you've ever, silly dandy, and just feel free to put that in there and give us some input on ways that we can make that more effective. Cool. Thanks for that. Big thank you. I sent you all just like a onboarding survey 2 weeks ago, just to kind of get a pulse of like, where do you stand in the program? What questions did you want to flag for me? Kind of just like make sure that our Slack was all set up. And this has been wildly helpful for me, is where I look at like, where should we be prioritizing our time to help? And so a lot of you, like when you took this feedback, said like, hey, I don't know how to connect my ledger. And so this was wildly helpful for like, cool, where do we prioritize time? So kind of tying this back into like why I'm so grateful for the participation is when we get that feedback from you as notaries, we can then take it and then bake it into like what we're working on, ways to make that better. We'll talk much more about some of the data that I've been pulling from you as your input during Filecoin Plus Day. Just at a very high level, I just want to say thank you for those of you notaries on the call that took part in that survey and got back right away. It means a lot. All right, Eric, I don't think that you're on the line. He was on the morning session. Eric, are you on the line, or anybody from ByteBase, just to make sure? I'm doing a quick scan. I don't see you. All right, feel free to unmute and talk over me if you are. So we did the onboarding session last week, and Eric came to us afterwards and said, thank you. I've been a notary for a while. I would like to volunteer my time and lead a Mandarin session for those of you on the call that would like to speak in this particular dialogue. And I'll just take point. And what he's going to cover is all the steps that we talked about: setting up your ledger, getting verified, how we communicate Slack, GitHub, and open dialogues, how we look at what's good and what's bad as far as responses, as well as what their own experience is being a successful notary in the program. So I'm going to be adding that to the Fil Notary calendar. It's going to be scheduled for next week, and I will post that time in the Notary channel. So if you were looking for that Mandarin-led session, it happens next week. And just as an example for someone like finding a need and filling that. So thank you for doing that, Eric. If you're watching this, it's really cool. And I'm going to turn it over to Galen for LDN v3.
Yes, I'll keep this brief. We are still making progress on implementation for LDN v3, going from basically having one very large parent multi-sig notary that all of the notary signers are a member of, that works now with all of the approved large data set clients. There's a non-zero amount of technical work and dashboard work to get that going. So all of that is in progress. Our plan is we'll notify everybody when we have like a detailed implementation rollout timeline and plan. Any active LDNs shouldn't experience a significant gap. We should be able to just roll from like the active client address is just going to roll to a new notary that it's working with. Once we get everyone rolled over, there will be a process to then deprecate all of those old multi-sigs and remove them from the active notary table. So that's in the work. As we continue to like do these implementations, if any problems or ideas like come up, that GitHub issue is still open, so we can track any issues that anybody has. Like you can go post them there if you have thought of something in the meantime. So just letting everybody know that that work is still ongoing and in progress.
Nice. All right, next is the open issues. So these are like proposals, changes, big updates, and then members of the community that have put together these presentations for us about the notary program. So the first one I will kick off, and that is proposal 537. This is fresh off the printer. I think it's like 5 hours old. And so here's what's happened. As our program is growing, there is much more interest in presenting a demonstration or an application on an LDN or somebody showing their project proposal, which is fabulous. But it's creating a downside, is that how do we accommodate that time in the notary governance meetings while still being able to share this information that's vital for like notaries, for onboarding, for metrics. So here's what the proposal says. It's issue 537. I'll drop this here in chat here. And essentially what it highlights is the proposal is this. If you would like to share your presentation, like Vegetable 360 Planet Elf, you wanted to present what's going on with your application. The way that you would do it, according to this proposal, is you would record a short 5-minute overview. And this is just a recommendation. I've seen a lot of these, is in your overview, tell us what your organization is. Who are you? How long have you been around? Where are you located? What industry do you operate in? Then tell us about the data. What is it? Where is it currently being stored? What will change when it's brought into this open source? Is it publicly available? All of these questions that we'll see in the application. And then explain what you're looking for. I want 2 notaries to review my application and give me feedback. Or I would like to answer questions that you may have. Or I haven't seen progress and I would like someone to comment on it. In that 5 minutes, answer those basics as well as whatever you're looking to do. And then you'll upload it, and the links are inside of this issue, to a Google folder. What I will commit to doing is I will collect all of those videos, and I will make sure that they are posted, and the links are all posted in the Fil Notary channel, the private channel with all the notaries, as well as the Fil application review. And I'll do that ahead of the governance call. And then if you would like to speak, meaning you want to have anybody ask you questions or say, hey, does anybody have any issues? Sign up on the repo that I make for the sessions the same way that you've been doing. And rather than spending 5 minutes for you to present, everybody does that one after the other, we'll then open it up for everybody on the call. We'll say, hey, we have the following LDNs that are on the call. Does any notary have questions of those? And then they'll round robin and they'll say, yes, I have a question on LDN 508. Can you please tell me what your data plan is? So this way, rather than having to allocate 45 minutes, 50 minutes to those demos, We'll then allocate 5 or so minutes for just the Q&A. This proposal just went up. I would really appreciate it if you could like it, if you agree, leave a comment if you think that this is the silliest thing and you wish that it would change in some way. Really looking for that participation on like ways that we could collect your input. This is a byproduct to make sure that we're doing right by you guys that are on the call, while those that still wish to participate. So this is new, this is live. I'm going to open it up and mute for any comments, thoughts, or suggestions.
I posted a simple "I like this" in the GitHub repo, but this does make me think about I worry a little bit that like we have these discussions and we do issues and things like that. But if someone is interested in this process, I'm not sure that they would always be able to find this stuff. And I don't have a good answer to this, so maybe I should shut up. But almost like we should have like a mailing list for people who are interested in storage provision, in notary stuff. I don't know. I feel like there's a risk that this gets buried, but at least we can point people to it when they come into the site.
It's definitely a good flag. I appreciate you putting that feedback on there. Is there any others? Any other thoughts on this?
Well, I think it could work, Kevin, like test it, a short sharp video before the first time the issue comes in and notary's picking it up. And if you haven't, because I miss out on the presentations that have happened before now, but if I could watch a couple of minutes that actually does answer all those questions, not avoid them, like they're really targeted questions. And if it was no more than, 3 or 4 minutes, I think it would be helpful.
All right, I appreciate that, Meg, as always. Thank you. Thank you for the feedback. All right, well, I'll float this. The issue is up. We'll give it a week, and then I might ask one more call. I'll make a final Slack post, and pending any changes, we might try this out and see how it works for sharing any kind of application demos on that. All right, while you're all here, Filecoin Plus Day coming up 3 weeks. This is it's really quick. So essentially, it's locked in June 7th. And you should see the invite. I think that I posted this. If I'm just having a senior citizen moment, I'll post this again in our channels. Essentially, the registration link is live, the Luma Plus Filecoin Day. It's taking place at 8 o'clock Texas time. So I'll be adding this to the Notary Governance calendar. If anybody wants that, it will also automatically register you. So that Texas time comes out to 13:30 UTC. That's around 4 o'clock Mainland China time. So if you were going to be on this call, we've tried to pick it in a time where most of the community can participate in that as much as possible. Galen, as always, thank you for posting that link. So high level with this Filecoin Plus Day, we are going to have an in-person element that's taking place in Austin, Texas. I think some of you on the call will be there. Very much looking forward to that. And then many of you attending will be virtual. So our commitment, Deep, Galen, and I, to you is that we're being very mindful of that. And we're looking at ways that we can make this conference as engaging and communicative as possible over the virtual element. So we're really investing a lot of time in like, how do we get the mics? How do we have the cameras? How do we have the layout? Because goodness gracious, it is the most boring thing to watch like 5 hours of presentation from a static camera that's blurry and you can't hear anybody. And if you try to talk remotely, everything goes out the window. So if you are going to be attending virtually, it'll ask you in this sign up. Looking forward to it. And we solicited feedback last week. These are some of the great ideas, and all the credit goes to Deep for coming up with this list. It's wonderful. At a high level, here's what's going to take place in that Filecoin Plus Day. Start off with friendly hellos. Like, what is the system? What is Filecoin Plus? What are we trying to do here? The target audience for this is anybody who's never experienced us before or knows what the program is. Followed by a State of the Union. What are our biggest challenges? What are we working to overcome? Where do we see the program in 1 year, 3 years, 5 years? And how do we see our roadmap to getting there? Then we're going to have a working group on the Filecoin Plus. So if you're looking to get started, do some modifications, this working group will be a great way for you to participate. Also, there is a storage provider meetup in the afternoon. So those storage providers will have a session for in the morning for if you have questions, feedback, kind of participate in that. The goal of these sessions is to make them as participatory as possible while still pushing out as much information as you can handle as a human as we go forward. It's going to be a class on crypto economics, then a notary lessons learned. We have a lot of great minds in sharing that information with some of the newer notaries and taking those lessons learned as we start to look to the upcoming 4th election. My goodness, and we'll start to plan for here in the end of the year. There'll also be a session on social impact and the future of storage. So very much looking forward to those of you that will be there live, those of you can be on the call. Thank you for registering. And I'm going to open it up if anybody has any questions under the sun or wants to talk about this event. Galen, can I put you on the spot to say something humorous and witty just to kind of break the monotony of me saying this? Anything you got, buddy? Anything you want?
Filecoin Plus Day is going to have a pizza party hosted by Charles. That's what I heard.
Be extremely careful. You end up with Charles not even coming.
It's okay. He can still send pizza. He doesn't need to be there.
I will be there. I'll make sure like I get up early in the morning and physically be there as a real person.
Nice. That'll be fantastic.
Great.
And I mean, we're going to be in Austin. So if you decide you want to bring tacos instead, that's totally acceptable.
I will bring my entire team there.
Oh, you're going to bring your team. Okay. I accept that. I actually accept that. It's okay.
This will be 3 people now, not like a Euro, like a single hero model is end. Now we're a group of people.
Decentralized Charles. He's bringing the whole nebula, not just himself.
As an act of loyalty or solidarity, I'm actually going to be flying in from the UK for this one. I will be as jet lagged as everyone else.
Well, I mean, morning should be good for you if you're coming in from the UK, right? Just like prime time evening hangout in the UK. Morning US time should be prime time for socializing UK time, so you should be okay. I just fear for what will happen to you when noon comes around.
Yeah, there's some point where I'm just going to fall over.
Yeah.
That's going to happen, however.
Perfect conference.
All right. I know if you join the call late, we don't always have the link. Sorry. This is the final chance if you're on this call and you want to get the SLA participation as notaries. We posted it earlier. Galen, can I ask your help one more time just to share this link? If you joined late, this is the link, my man. Thank you. Just to kind of log, hey, I was here on the call as we go forward. Now, with that, we have a member of the community who's been leading it. Meg, hold on. I'm going to turn it over to you. And thank you for this proposal. And the time is all yours.
Great, thanks. I will, there is a lot of content in here, so I don't expect to run through or everyone to read it while I'm just whizzing through it. I'm dropping it in issue, I think it's 527, it's at the back of the pack. But today I'm just gonna cover off why we're doing something like File Plus Enterprise, why we're proposing a program like this. We did a pulse check, so a bit of qualitative research from more than 20 people in the community. And so I'm going to share some of those insights. I'll cover off the high level of what the proposal looks like, and then how would we run something like this. So if you can take me to the next page. Who's my mouse bitch? Is that you, Kevin? It is, great.
Yes, I'll be your clicker. Just let me know.
Clicker. I prefer mouse bitch. Okay, so the enterprise program, it's really 4 dimensions on the left-hand side, really. The current scope, many of us are finding limiting. There's storage providers and business development happening in the community. And there are plenty of clients and viable, useful use cases, but they just don't qualify for the public data scope of File Plus today. Many of them also are testing, like they make decisions for proof of concepts. This is a new system. It's a new way of thinking for them. So it's going to take a bit of time for them to get on board, and proof of concepts are a way that they can test the water. The third dimension really is that we are selling a system. Who says this? I think it's you, Danny. We're selling a plane. It's taking off and it's not quite built yet. So to do that, to help those Web3 aware thinkers get their head around trading off risk for this, we still feel incentives are important. So that's why File Plus would enter into this equation. And it's already happening. We know that we are seeing a number of enterprise clients trying to fit within this public scope, and it's breaking some of the rules. And there's quite a bit of tension around it, and many of us feeling uncomfortable. So why not just read the signs and design something that can allow the whole network actually to scale. On the right-hand side, the enterprise program is going to cover off these type of dimensions. We're going to be looking at the business model and proposition. Will there be any changes in the notary due diligence process? Contracts and service level agreements will surface through an enterprise arrangement. How do we handle different types of data types that are private? Client responsibilities are going to shift. There's going to be different stakeholders and their roles will expand as well. And we'll cover off how to manage risk and abuse of the system. Anyone have any questions before Kay-Ray moves on? All good? The pulse check. So over about 3.5 weeks, I conducted interviews with foundation members, protocol labs, a lot of SPs, notaries, and some ecosystem contributors. There's one gap here. We haven't spoken to any clients. Would be really great to take on their feedback. It's something that we may have time to do in the next week, the week before the conference, or it just wraps up in the MVP plan, which I'll explain shortly. There were close to 10 or so themes that came out of this. Some of the big ones were around the notary function and can it be improved, and that the customer experience also could be improved. That building Web3 awareness is often challenging in making these deals. That the tech tooling and technology is not where it could be, and it could be improved and support everyone in this application process more. There is some lack of clarity around the current program and tools and how it's progressing. The graph that I think Kevin showed at the beginning about how much data onboarding is data cap, but how does this program really work? And so we're still lifting the lid about that and how that might feed into future programs. And then I think the last point to call out was, this may just be the beginning, right? We may be thinking about deals that have different sort of flavors. They may be hybrid. They may be completely well distributed like they are in Slingshot. They may be local only for those organisations. And I often use Australia because lots of organisations don't like to put their data offshore. So there's some of the main themes. If we move on to the next slide. I'm so sorry. That's my neighbour's dog having a fight with my dogs. Oh, no, but go back one, Kevin. Oh, that's interesting.
Are we missing a slide, Meg?
I'll upload it in the issue. There is some sound bites. So the actual some of the snippets of what the feedback was are interesting to have a look at. And I'll look for a public place to actually put all of the feedback. If you want to have a look at all I might need that from one of you guys. Deeps.
Why not kick off a discussion that just says aggregating feedback or something? Yeah, you and I can chat about that and find the right place.
Perfect. Okay. So the proposal itself is going to cover most of these dimensions. I talked about them in the beginning. I won't go over them again. But these really are the things that we need to, that are important in the current File Plus program. They're linked to the File Plus mission, and we must preserve some of them. So we must still have the Web3 values at our core. It must still be preserving network distribution. Some of the new dimensions will be, how do we manage risk upfront a little better, and what are the roles and due diligence of notaries and sponsors? So digest that one at your own leisure. The next slide is a bit of a timeline. So this is what I'm proposing, that I'm doing a fair amount of socializing of this ahead of the File Plus day, so that everyone should come into that room in that discussion that we have on the 7th and have some understanding of what it is. I'll upload this to the issue, which is in the next slide, the link, but these are the timeframes. And back at the beginning, when Kevin was asking how do we measure engagement and involvement contribution, on the left-hand side here, you'll see this very first down the bottom, File working group. We're really going to need some stream leads that will help take all of this work through to what is a working program and something that is going to be viable. And it needs contribution. It can't actually, like, if we have more diversity of thought and from different regions, then we will build a program that is more universal. So I'm going to be looking for people that are willing to actually find the time and dedicate it to working on these things. So this is the rough timeline. I'll be sharing this pack, but right before, the week before File Plus, the whole proposal will go up in, if you go to the last slide for me, Kerry, in this issue, 527. So you'll be able to find all of the, and I can drop that in Slack, all of the materials around this will appear in this issue, and anyone that wants to get involved, you can provide feedback in the issue or at the day, because I think it's going to be live streamed, and we have a full ecosystem discussion about it then. That's all I had to cover off. Any questions?
No question, just clarification. Meg, you'll be speaking at Filecoin Plus Day. Did I hear that correct?
Yes. Yes, I will. Right, okay. I'll upload this just after the call, and feel free to actually probably log your comments in there. It'd be great if everyone can see what your thoughts, everyone's thoughts about this are. And if you're interested in being one of those leads, please also flag that.
Excellent as always. Thank you so much, Meg.
No problem.
All right, so 2 parts to the community discussion today. So I'm going to turn this over first to any notaries on the call that want to flag anything that we talked about, get Danny's travel plans, jet setting man, input, discussions open. And then once we've gone through that, we have everyone who's signed up to present. There's no way we're going to get down this list, hence the proposal for recordings, but just making sure that we'll go in the order that this list is. So first, any notaries on the call that wish to discuss anything we've done.
I just wanted to say thank you to Meg for putting in all this work on the Filecoin Enterprise, the Fil Enterprise thing.
Okay, so with that, this morning we had time for just NFT scan to present. So if any of you are on the line, those of you that signed up and asked for time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to post that proposal 537 into the sign up sheet. That way you can just, rather than presenting live, just record it in your own time and then upload it. I'll put all the instructions there in that GitHub repo, and I'll make sure that it goes out. And so next time you're on the call, you can go forward. Since we do have 5 minutes left, we'll go down this list, which means, I hope I pronounced this right, A Tester 66. Are you on the line, and would you like to present?
Yeah, hello.
Hello.
Yeah, I like to do it now. So let me share the screen. All right.
And so just as a quick check-in on time, you'll have 5 minutes, and I'll just give you a 1-minute warning if you're getting close. That'll save a minute for any kind of Q&A. And then everybody else, I'll post how to post your responses async.
Okay. So I'll start now. So hello, everyone. I'm Joe Ma, Vice President of AI Test. I'll give you a brief introduction on my company's status, features, and core competence, and why we believe it's a great opportunity to join Filecoin. As you can see, we were founded in 2006 and now has more than 200 employees. Over 140 of them work in R&D department, since innovation and technology are vitally important to us. We have more than 18 intellectual property rights, which includes invention patents and software works. And we've participated in the formulation of 4 national standards and industrial standards. All of those bring us great advantage in competing with others and establishing a solid cooperation with over 100 customers in 9 major industries. Besides, we've established 6 regional monitoring centers and ready to build China's largest artificial intelligence automatic crowd monitoring network in 3 years. This needs and will generate a lot of data. Okay, speaking of data, I'd like to spend a few minutes on what kind of data we have and we need to make a backup on Filecoin network. As the chart shows, 4 major parts are included. Real-time monitoring video, which is critical to our working process, amounts to 54% of our data. This is 418 terabytes. And database includes exception database, sample database, defeat database, and the scrimp database are 415.8 terabytes in total. Taking system log, the number which occupy 1.12 terabytes, and test report 4.68 terabyte into consideration, the number comes up to 896.1 terabytes. That's a lot of data, so we are eager to find an industrial solution to back them up. Now it's time for our core products, AI Tester. AI Tester is a highly integrated test server which focuses in 5 major features: functional test, performance stress test, safety test, compatibility test, and real-time operation monitoring of the whole network. With AI Tester, our customer can easily test all kinds of the device and programs. We are proudly to see this will boost your efficiency and greatly simplify the process of debug on both hardware and software. Okay, here's another core product of our company, an AI automated test cloud platform. This platform is based on AI tester cluster, so it will bring you the same experience and durability as AI tester. We've deployed 4 clusters in China, so whenever our customers are, they can test whatever they want and get accurate results through crowd network. Our cluster supports cellular network access. That means you can use a smartphone or tablet to upload tasks, monitoring the whole process, and download flowchart. It's a huge step for the whole industry and makes products test easier than ever. And I'm proud to give you a short conclusion with core products we have. We believe it's a Trinity product matrix of software, hardware, and cloud platform. Algorithm and models are the core of these products, supporting software tests that feature in several critical processes, as you can see on the slides. Then we have AI Tester, software and hardware integration, functional integration like life cycle testing and monitoring, cloud platform as the outer barrier in the cycle, providing us and our customers tons of solutions to their works. That's all about our company that I like to share with you today. So if you have any questions, please leave a comment on GitHub and we are glad to answer them. Thank you.
Very well presented. Thank you. We have about a minute and a half left. I'll open it up if anybody on the line has questions.
Okay.
Yeah, I always take that as you did such a good job presenting that you answered all the questions before they raised it. So hey, thumbs up on that.
Okay, that's good news.
Then what we're going to do is we're going to break a full 85 seconds early. So you're welcome with that bonus time for family togetherness. What you'll see coming is please comment on some of these proposals. Remember that we have the Mandarin session coming up next week, the registration for Filecoin Plus, the e-proposal, lots happening in the community. And those of you that attended this call that didn't get a chance to share, I will again link the way that you could record your video, and I'll make sure that that gets on the radar for everybody who will be willing to watch that. So again, thank you. If there's anything else you wanted to add, I'll stick around for a moment. Then as always, feel free to reply to the issues or the comments. Oh, Deep! Oh man, yes. The floor is yours, bud.
Two quick things. One, actually, I was going to flag Galen already put in the chat. Joe, it'd be great if you could share those slides in your issue. That'd be awesome. Second one is in the issue, I remember you had mentioned you'd already identified the storage providers you're going to be working with. I know that they all have to be in China because of the data regional constraints. It would probably help building confidence with notaries if you can actually share the storage provider organizations you're going to be working with and your plan to sort of generally get deals done. Literally, if you just share the SP IDs and the organizations, I think that typically helps notaries move really quickly, at least from what we've seen. Other notaries, feel free to agree or disagree with me, but that's been like a fast way to sort of get and verification, especially from notaries that are in different regions. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for making the time.
Okay, thank you.
Danny's too quick, man. Already posted the comment with a request. Wow.
Just stealing your thunder there.
No, that's fantastic.
In the GitHub repo.
Let's do it. Let's do it. I stole Galen's thunder, so we're just passing on the thunder.
All right, everybody. I'm going to stop the recording. Thank you all.